I'm Valentina Diamante. I feel like I have a responsibility to all those little girls in Mexico who want a superhero to look up to. I'm extremely grateful because at WOW, I can be that superhero. I feel strong. I feel unstoppable.
I know whatever she's eating was delivered through this means of having oil. Oh, was that it? Was that a 3 count?
And Scott Parker took this matchup.
And your winner is Scott Parker.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and it is time. I put it off long enough to get to the review of the WrestleMania weekend edition of WOW, or at least that's the air date that it came across. It is also the reason that I was not in a big hurry to go check that show out. You know, I was pretty much loaded up with wrestling, and I just did not feel like watching another set of wrestling that could potentially have annoyed me. And it did just that. When I watched it, it started off with some good old-fashioned inconsistency and plot holes, just like I expect WOW to do. Now, that's not to say that the entire episode is bad. Let me just go put that on record right now, because I thought the main event was better than it had any right to be. But we'll get to that. First, thank you for tuning in, as always. I do appreciate that, but I feel as if just because they've got so much stuff lingering around plot-wise, or perhaps the lack thereof, that I could get into a portion where I'm a bit annoyed. I already kind of feel it bubbling up underneath the surface because of how it opens, and of course the explanation of which they try to make it some sort of big deal. You know, WOW likes to make their stuff into this is going to be great, or this is the match of a lifetime, or whatever, you know. But why don't we just move right into it so we can get into the crux of the show and exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So here is the opening slate. Well, first, let me leave a little blank spot here so that for those of you that are watching this on YouTube will be able to have a spot to put their little commercial spot. And when I come off of that, then we will go into the full review of WOW. Okay, so the slate here for this episode is WOW episode 332. That's season 3, episode 32 of that. Title, Family Feud Championship Edition. The air date, April the 19th. And their chronological number is 136. This episode opened up directly. Started off into a match. There was no pretense or anything like that. This is Genesis taking on Santana Garrett. Now, this is what started to bug me, and I don't know if the blow-by-blow or the play-by-play of the match is all that important in this particular incident or this particular matchup. Or I'm very hesitant to say feud. Like that, it's almost like they've tried to portray this as some ongoing issue between the two. It started off with McLean saying that Genesis is upset with him because she hadn't gotten a title shot. And the first thing I'm thinking is, why is she complaining? She lost clean. to the champion. And it wasn't all that long ago. It's not like it's been months and she's started re-racking wins. She already lost. Which, again, made me feel like, where was the forethought here? Where was the forethought for this? If you knew that you were going to go back to it, and this is exactly what I was concerned about when they did it. When she had the title match, well, not the title match, when she had the non-title match, against the Classmaster, this is exactly what I was concerned with. Like, how are they going to just turn around and throw her back into it? She just got beat. But here is like, well, we have to ignore that. And you might even be able to get past the fact that, okay, maybe she's just, doing the heel thing and wants to get back into a title match just because. But then the end of this match just yanks that away too. It's like, what is this for? Why is it so difficult to have some level of continuity and be consistent? And I know that taping schedule is weird, given that they shot, a year's worth of content inside of a month, which is just stupid. But whose fault is that? Who made the decision to we'll just shoot everything now? So if that's the reason that they feel like, it's hard to maintain continuity and stuff like that because we're trying to map out an entire year inside of 1 month's time, that's their fault. So it's very hard for me to be sympathetic to that. But in any case, why? Why is it that Genesis is even in the running for a title? Why is she being considered? So we got Genesis and we got Santana Garrett. Now the closest thing that these two had to some level of interaction is that they both sat at ringside during the other person's match. They didn't really have any interactions. They didn't have an exchange of words necessarily. In fact, it was like Santana Garrett put her over. So I don't know, especially if you go into their YouTube, like Bad Blood Boils Over. That's the title of the video. Like, what bad blood? Why do they have bad blood? Aside from the fact that, okay, well, they're both going after the same thing. And the match is fine. I mean, they did well with each other, and I'm not going to take anything away from that. It's just the inconsistency of them both bothers me because Santana Garrett's not any different, and I'm not saying it's either one of their personal faults. It's just the ongoing creative that WoW has in that they know that their fans do not care. And the fans that are just prone to watch WoW on a week-to-week basis, regardless of what they say, what they do, how consistent it is or not, are going to do and say the same things. This match is great. This match is fire. These two are solid. It's the same stuff. But it wasn't all that long ago that we was hearing Santana Garrett get up on the microphone talking about, I'll wait my turn to get in the championship match. Which is about as generic a babyface thing that you can do and say in WoW. It's the old, gosh, gee, I'll just wait till you find or deem me worthy so I can get a title match. But getting past that, she is now, for all intents and purposes, she being Santana Garrett, despite that she was willing to wait, she got her title or the opportunity to go for the title in relative short order, given that this match theoretically is supposed to be a number one contenders match. That's how it was kind of portrayed, right? So we have this, a number one contender. Now just keep that in mind. This is allegedly the goal of both these ladies, that we're going for, getting a chance to have the match, to go for the title. And despite the fact that I say that it's not a terrible match, I don't think it's necessarily Santana's best work. But I don't know if I put that all on her. I don't know if I would say it's Genesis' best work because she has improved, but she still has a couple of holes in their game. But that I would say that's to be expected. She's been placed on national TV far too soon. She's not bad. She just probably needs the seasoning that most wrestlers would get if they were traveling, if they were doing this on a day-to-day basis. Well, I guess you can't really do it day-to-day these days. But if you were doing it on a regular basis to kind of patch the holes in your game or figure out something else that's works for you, or whatever the case may be, she doesn't really have that, and nor do I get the impression that she tries. I mean, in fact, during the course of this match, they talked about Genesis living in Europe, but she flies in from there to do the tapings. Like, seriously, you guys pay for a plane ticket for her to fly from Italy to LA to do the show? You couldn't find anybody in Los Angeles. All due respect to Genesis, but seriously, is she as a talent worth doing that? That is my question. Is she that big of a talent, a name, a star for that company that she is worth doing that? Now, it's their money. They can do whatever they want. I just question. That's all. But anyway, we won't go into that. I digress, because the point of this is the inconsistency that goes on. So there's a couple of moments in the match where you might get a stutter step or stagger or, something along those lines like that. What was it that Garrett did? Where Genesis had to basically just stand and look like, what's going on? What's happening? Like, Garrett goes into the ropes after rolling past Genesis for whatever reasons. I can't remember what the exact thing was at that time. But when she does it, she does a little barrel roll thing, gets underneath her. And when she goes towards the ropes, she stands up and then rolls backwards to get Genesis in the head scissors, which, for whatever reasons, Genesis is looking like, what? like she can't see where Santana Garrett is gone, despite the fact that she's directly in front of her face. It's little moments like that, but like I said, we won't go off into the ins and outs of the match, just top to bottom. We'll stick with the plot here. But there's a couple of moments like that, flipping Garrett over the top rope, and then she lands on the apron, and Genesis, for whatever reason, has to hold her arm up, now it's time for me to hit you. They had a couple of those, which then did the reverse. It made Garrett have to kind of stand there and wait. It's only a few seconds, but it is enough in TV time to kind of, make it look bad, and for those who are looking to poke a hole in it, to poke holes in it. And then, how I feel about the fans in that building. I'm hesitant to even say arena. Who was this knucklehead that was on the corner right by the commentator booth? Because he was overacting his ass off. You are not going to convince me that dude was a paying fan that decided to come in here and knew either one of them. If he was, I was like, he's doing whatever he can to get some sort of attention on him. Just go back and watch. It's like he's got it's not a hoodie. I guess it looks like a short sleeve hoodie, but I can't see the back, so I can't tell. But it's got two drawstrings and the green shirt, and he's just over there like, hey, get up, and just waving his arms around and all that. My goodness, man, where do you get these people? He is clearly overacting. Just like a couple of them there on the front row have done before, but he took the cake. But anyhow, back to the match. So here's the important part of it. Like I said, the match in and of itself, okay, but the importance is that Garrett wins. She wins clean with the roll-up. Right? So she is supposed to now be the number one contender for the Wild Championship. But then Genesis gets mad and she attacks her after the match. And then says that this was unfair. How is this unfair? Yes, she's a heel. I understand that. Yes, she should be upset and she should want a title match and all this, but she has no valid point. She doesn't even have a twisted valid point. This goes to what I was talking about to begin with. She lost to the Classmaster clean in a non-title match, which should have put her out of the running. But even if we ignore that, she just lost again to Santana Garrett, clean as a whistle in the middle of the ring. What is her gripe? And why is it that Wild refused to give her an out? If she was supposed to have some level of complaint that led her into being a title contender, why didn't you give her that? That is the big issue here. And then after she's off on the microphone complaining that this is unfair and, you know I wanted a title match or whatever, out comes Abilene Maverick with Paola to say that, no, she's the number one contender despite getting herself disqualified in the title match that she had. What's the matter with these people? Why would Paola Mayfield have a legitimate... She got herself disqualified by being an idiot. It wasn't even like it built towards the referee screwed up the count, or you didn't see me when I had a beat, or something that she could have legitimately been frustrated and upset about. None of those things happened. She just, you didn't count me, and then clotheslined the guy. And then he was out for indefinitely until the match was over. Surprise, surprise. What is the issue here? So after she comes out and she does that, and of course Mayfield, I don't know what it is about some of these heel competitors that they just lose the ability to speak at all. But after she comes out and Maverick gives her position on why Mayfield should be the number one contender, and McClain has to get up from the commentating booth and address things as usual. And basically says we have to end the controversy. What controversy? What is the debate here? And if I'm Santana Garrett, that should be the complaint. It's like, why are you giving these two another opportunity? I just won the number one contendership. I just beat her. But of course, she has to be the good girl and the baby face and just go along to get along. And all right, fine, I'll do it again. This match coming up that this supposedly sets up is rewarding losers. And basically, if you complain long enough, you'll get what you want. If you gripe and complain and, I need a title shot, well, why don't I have it? Then, all right, fine. All of this was just ridiculously bad. And I hate that I'm pretty sure they stuck their nose in the sand of their comments and are just perfectly fine. Like, yeah, look at this. Congratulations, Santana Garrett, and this is great, and what an awesome match, and never just... I wish I could get them to take their head out of the sand of that, or stop burying themselves in the comments of their hardcores. They are not going to be enough to support WoW in the future. They will not be. And if they keep trying to just appease them and not get anybody else, then WoW isn't going to last. Now, I'm not wishing that on them. I'm not hoping it for them. I'm not saying that, they just need to go, and I'm not that person, because, people need a place to go and work. I mean, more options, the better. But they are not going to make it easy for any television network, station, independent, owned by Paramount Global or otherwise, to keep them on the air. And maybe those stations don't care, because most of the time I see this is on like 11 and 12 o'clock. Some areas is on at 1. So if they have 100,000 people that's watching it right then, they might be fine. But if they are looking to make this some sort of national product that people would pay money to go and see, as Jeannie Buss has said publicly, and she wants to tour, and well, we might get our own Rock or our own John Cena one day. If that is her objective, she is a long way away from that. You can't get behind anybody here. It's not like they gave you a remote option of debate in this scenario. I can't get behind Genesis here. She just got beaten over and over. Clean. No excuse. I can't get behind Paola Mayfield because she made a stupid decision. And it's hard to get behind Santana Garrett because she's just willing to accept what's thrown at her. There's no controversy here. The next segment, Nigel sets up, recaps what just happened, and he sets up for the main event, which is the Tag Team Championship match later on in the episode. Segment after that, Animal Instinct versus Tiki, Charmorro, and Kalaki the Island Girl. Well, you knew this was going to happen eventually. You knew at some point they were going to branch off and start tagging up. And we've gotten to this point now. I'm surprised they just haven't gone ahead and here's the new Island Dynasty. I'm surprised that hasn't happened. But we got the Wild's favorite tag team, short of Miami Sweet Heat. I don't know whose pet project they are or who's in love with this team, but they eat up so much airtime. But as this match begins, McLean starts off talking about needing to settle the controversy that we just talked about, and I said, I wrote down, this is so stupid. Zayn at some point mentions that we watched the friendship of Tiki and Kalaki unfold in front of our eyes. I wrote down, we have. When? Because I don't remember any of that. I don't remember them having a single conversation with each other. They just got put together like every other hodgepodge team that exists on WoW. At what point did we ever see Tiki and Kalaki communicate, bond, talk about how and why we're together, the friendship that allegedly took place? Where was any of that? It's another case of the commentators have to explain it for you because we couldn't show it or we didn't show it. And I am really hard-pressed to understand why they don't shoot anything with some of these other people while they're there. I mean, anything. How difficult would it have been to have them have a promo segment? I mean, you're paying Sibley Skulls. Why not have her, hey, guys, I just want to interview you about this, that, or the other. And then they could have explained it then. Why? Or why not? Why couldn't they have done it? Is their schedule that tight that they just could not get in one interview segment to try and to piece some of this together? Well, anyhow, we have Animal Instinct versus Charmorro and Kalaki. I don't think that anybody walked into seeing this match expecting anything different than what they got. It is very clear that Animal Instinct is a favorited act by someone. I don't know who, but is a favorited act by somebody. The ins and out of this also not important. Or at least I didn't feel like it was important. We know where it was going. We know how it ended up. Now, in fairness to Collins and Jinx, they do all right. And I don't want to take that away from them. But I just don't think they are not. It's like Genesis. They are not in the position that they need to be a top act on a national product quite just yet. They are the examples to me of people who they were trained to be the characters that they are. They're not necessarily trained to be wrestlers. Goldie Collins is trained to be Goldie Collins, and Jinx is trained to be Katarina Jinx. But I don't think beyond that, if you was asked them to do something even remotely outside of that, they probably wouldn't be able to do it. So anyhow, at some point we get Charmorro into the ring, and she's in there with Collins. Collins does the whole over-exaggerated faces in the corner while she's taking some shoulder blocks in her gut. When Charmorro does the pounce, I like Tiki, but I really think that thing should be either retired or get some people in there that can sell it well, or she could perform it well. I don't know if I don't know if she's the person to be doing it. Yes, I know she has a rugby background, but the pounce is like a power move. I could see if the Beast was in there and she did it, because then you could justify, or you could see like, all right, yeah, she just shoulder blocked and they just flew across the ring. Tiki, she's not the smallest girl on the roster, but she is somewhat small. And I don't know if I can really buy into that being a effective move for her. But anyhow, there was just a few things that I questioned during the course of this match. One of which being, I feel like WoW on a couple of occasions will try to establish something as a finish, but then that finish will just get bastardized and just it won't be a finish anymore. Like no matter how many times they tried it previous to this one thing, it's just like, all right, we'll just do something else. See the Classmaster. Like she went weeks using the big boot, and then all of a sudden she's using something else. Nothing gets established for long. Once it's there, it just changes. And that was the case here. Charmorro gets Jinx on the second rope. She hits her with her version of the 619, the 671. Of course, they got to give it a area code number because Ray had an area code number. Couldn't just call it something else. But Jinx doesn't really sell it. She gets hit with it, and then she just pretty much rolls back up to her feet. Then she's talking to the referee, like begging off and holding his attention. I had a problem with this little area in the match because isn't that her finish? Wasn't that the move that she used to kind of, to get her wins in, or at least attempt to get a win in? It didn't do anything to Jinx. She took it, she rolled right through it, and then she just went to the other side of the ring. And then for whatever reason, the referee went over there and started talking to her. Like there was no real cause for him to be there. He just decided to go. And so while the referee's there, of course, this gives an opening for Collins to come in, and she does a backbreaker on Charmorro. Kalaki, and this is something that all the baby faces seem to do, or I shouldn't even say the baby faces, the wrestlers seem to do. Kalaki gets in the ring to try and stop this dastardly double team or dastardly illegal move that the illegal person performed. but she goes towards the referee, not towards the action. So she just walks right over to him, and then he stops her like, hey, get out and whatever. And if there's anything, this kind of gave more validity to the heels having a win on their side, because Jinx goes over there and immediately covers Charmorro while the referee's talking to the Island Girl. So now you got the visual of what the heels could have won if the referee was doing his job. So I'm sure that's not what they intended to. Well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. They might have, knowing them. So anyhow, they start getting the heat on Tiki. And they're doing their thing and, beating up on her. Until, of course, we find our opening and we get Tiki, who's able to break free from Katarina Jinx, who was about to do, assumably, her finish, whatever that thing is, when she takes the arm and then she hooks her leg across the back of Tomorrow's head. And honestly, I don't know if I'd be taking that from anybody in that ring. Not with the experience level that they're at. But Tomorrow's able to get out of it, and she gets the tag off to Kalaki, the Island Girl, and she comes in and starts cleaning house. And she, too, also does something in the ring that, wouldn't this have been a finish of some sort? She does a barrel roll power slam thing. Meanwhile, Goldie Collins just walks around the side to Tiki, taps her on the back, and Tiki just turns around like, huh? And then she gets hit and knocked off the apron. Okay, and let's just go ahead and say that now. This running over to the illegal person is getting overdone. That thing is getting overdone. Like every heel team does it. Manager, second, somebody like that, maybe. But, just to see the tag partner get down off the apron, run over there and yank the person down or knock them down or punch them and whatever, that's getting overdone. It's like they have no other way to be able to stop the babyface from getting in beyond that. Like you can do something else. So Tiki is down because Goldie Collins stopped her, and apparently Tiki wasn't paying attention to see that she had left or walked away. Inside the ring, Kalaki hits her snapmare driver and doesn't even think to go for the pin. She instead decides to go for her little surfboard thing, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Because she's never won with that. It's not even a move that has been utilized as a submission ever. It's always just there as a means to show her, I guess, doing her signature pose or whatever the case may be. But it's not been established as something that could be done as a win. No one's submitted to that. No one has even come close to submitting to it. So I don't know if it was going to get the desired effect out of the audience, whether live or on TV, that, well, she could have won if Goldie Collins hadn't done something. It probably would have been an easier thing for people to believe that after that driver, okay, she's going for a cover, and Goldie Collins broke that up. But no, they just, moved on to the next thing. And then there's the other thing. Goldie Collins comes over there and basically just drags Katarina Jinx, her partner, towards the ropes. Right in full view of the referee. There's no way that he could not have seen that. And then she gets up on the apron in probably the most unnatural way that she's ever done. She just sits down on it. So Kalaki can grab at her hair from behind. And, of course, she gets away, and then Kalaki's like, all right, well, she goes back over to Katarina Jinx. Jinx gives her a rake in the eyes, sets her down, puts her feet on the ropes, while Collins is, just giving an additional stomp to, I guess, Charmorro on the outside. And that's it. She got her feet on the ropes, 1, 2, 3. And Animal Instinct gets another win, and yay for them. But then the Island Girls are sore losers, so they get in the ring and they give them headbutts and drive them out. So I guess that was their way of being able to stand tall at the end. I don't know. Like I didn't get the vibe of that. Sometimes you see the baby faces do stuff at the end of the match so they can stand tall and you can give the people what at least the visual of them. All right, well, they lost, they were cheated, but look at them. They're standing tall as the triumphant baby faces that they are. They didn't win, but they got a moral victory of some description. I don't know if I got that vibe out of this. I think I more or less got the vibe of they're just sore losers. And so they were. They gave the headbutts, and Animal Instinct rolls out of the ring, and then they just walk up the ramp, and that was it. Like, did that really help Charmorro or Kalaki at all? Did it do anything for them as a team? Are they supposed to have anything done as a team? But I wrote, is this an opening for a new team? And I was like, I doubt it. I never know what they're doing with that now. I think they just, all right, we got to fill in some spots. So you two are together now. That's what it feels like to me quite often. The next segment is a promo for the next match, which is Scott Parker versus Valentina Diamante. And then the next segment after that is the match itself. That, if you listened to this from the beginning, or you saw it from the beginning if you're watching on YouTube, that is why that video clip is at the beginning of this. Because it was a squash. And I am not opposed to squash matches. Let me just be clear about that. I actually encourage squash matches when you have something for them to gain from the squash. I was happy that Scott Parker. I was happy that I was wrong. But here's where I had the problem with the match. First off, the match is like less than 2 minutes, bell to bells, like maybe an hour. It's maybe like a minute and 55 seconds or something. Like it's just under 2 minutes. But first, the commentators start doing what the commentators do, trying to justify where Scott Parker's partner is. And again, she's off and protesting. I think she tied herself to an oil well somewhere. I was like, what? How many wrestlers at WoW just simply have better things to do other than wrestling at WoW? Because that's what it feels like. How many of them just have better things to do? And I know they're trying to, give some level of justification as to why she's not there, but it just comes off to me like, okay, you're the boss and you let this person that you just signed have 2 matches and then just leave. And not even like, oh, it was family emergency or this happened or she's hurt. Not some real justified reason, just because, oh, well, I just want to go and protest. She's another, she just has better things to do. Like a lot of them. They just seem to have better things to do. WoW is secondary. And we'll do all these other things that we want to do first, and then I'll just get back to it when I got the time to get back to it. Valentina Diamante. Well, she was off visiting her family. Okay, that's nice. But how many times have we heard the wrestler's speech of sacrifice? When they're trying to put over, there's elements of truth in that, but when they're trying to put over what wrestling means to them or what wrestling means in that company to them, How many times have we heard wrestlers get on the microphone like, I've missed birthdays, I've missed anniversaries, I've given up, I didn't do my graduation because I was in wrestling training, and I missed funerals and weddings and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's a wrestling trope. You can even go so far as say it might be a little cliche, but it serves its purpose. And that purpose being is that it at least gets people the idea that, you know what, this must mean a lot to them. This must mean, short of their children or their spouse, it must be the most important thing in the world for them to be here, to be at that company, to wrestle in front of those people, to make, to help them enjoy their day just through, the 10 to 15 minutes that I'm in the ring, bell to bell or whatever. I don't get that at all with WoW. Every time I hear them try to explain why someone's not there, it just feels like, yeah, I don't feel like coming to work. I got other things I need to do, especially with Sprout Greens. 2 matches and she's gone. No injury, no issue, no angle, just gone. Win one, lost one, disappeared. Diamante is explained as having been with her family. Same thing. You hire them, let them have, and we talk about in the kayfabe TV universe of what they're doing. You hire them, they have 2 or 3 matches, and then gone for months. Again, there's better things to do than be wrestling with WoW. Even though that's supposedly your job. So again, this match is short. So Diamante basically got about like 2 moves in before she was just beaten up for the remainder of it. And she got 1 splash, and then she caught another one after having her head pounded into the mat. 1, 2, 3, that was it. That was the match. Now, again, I have no problems with the squash match, and I do encourage one. My issue there is don't be setting people up as some sort of star or somebody that we're supposed to keep our eyes out for if this is what their purpose is on the show. If they're just there to do the job, then I don't care about their background. Maybe that sounds mean, but I don't. I don't care about their background. If your only purpose on this show is to come in, lose, make the other person attempt to look good, and then do it again later on, what do I need to know, your dreams and goals? And I'm Valentina Diamante, and I'm signed to WoW, and I'm supposed to be encouraging for little girls, and I want to be their hero. I was like, what do I care about any of that if you can't do this? And keep in mind, Scout Parker has been basically beaten like a drum for like a month and a half. So the one person that came in there and is lost over and over and over again, she gets Diamante, who returns, and then not just beaten, but beaten in almost record time. And it is just stop trying to portray her as a star. That's all. Let her be Valentina Diamante and build it back up, maybe. But she shouldn't be beating anybody now. She couldn't overcome Scout. Who's going to go in there and lose to Valentina Diamante now? What wrestler on that roster could justifiably get beat by her, excuse me. And I don't know if it almost seemed like it was a little bit of a botch, but I'll just move off of that. Because the one thing that I wish Scout Parker had not done is win with the splash. Because he had already hit her with it. And if that is going to be her finish, or I don't even think that is, but if it were going to be a finish, I would prefer that she did it once and just kind of move on. I actually would have rather her done, I think she was doing a lion salt at one point in time, but hey, that goes right back to what I said before. Sometimes they establish a finish, and then for whatever reason, poof, that finish is gone. It doesn't do anything anymore. So I'm almost certain that they're not going to maintain that. 2 or 3 months from now, Valentina and Diamante will pair off with, the Dojo Defenders again and do the same song and dance that they've been doing, or she'll tag up with Xena Phoenix probably. We're going after the tag titles, it'll be something like that. So that was that segment. Good for Scout Parker. I hope that they could at least do something with her, but what are we, 3 months and counting, 3-4 months and counting of her not explaining why she's Scout Parker at all? I guess I'm just going to have to give up on that. She's just not going to be able to get a microphone and talk. Next segment is a recap of Pink and Swag winning the tag titles and the fallout afterwards, including the video of Miami Sweet Heat, getting pissed off at them in the locker room and grabbing their gear and leaving. The best thing about this angle are the persons performing it. That was what I wrote. And I absolutely stand by that. The best thing about this angle are the persons that are performing it. At least Penelope Pink, HollySwag, and to their credit, Miami Sweet, they all pulled their weight in this brief little segment. Now, I'm not saying that the entirety of the angle is sensible. I've already expressed why I wish they had taken a different route with it several times, because I did not see any real justified reason why Lana Star would not have supported Miami Sweet. I didn't see any justified reason why she would not have been there at ringside. They didn't do anything that would have caused it. It was just suddenly she just lost interest in them. But I think this is a case of on-screen talents taking what I would consider subpar material and trying to breathe life into it. That's the best I can give them. Next segment. Miami Sweet come out to the arena, and they come out addressing David McLean again. Is there anybody that can just address their opponent? Why does it always have to be this? Every time somebody has to come out to ringside, it is almost never a case of them, hey, I have a problem with you, so-and-so, fill in the blank. It's almost never that. It's like they come out, David, I have a problem. Like, why can't they just say it to, Lana Star or whoever, Penelope Pink, HollySwag, whoever that is that they got an issue with. Now, granted, it is a case of we want another title shot. And I don't know if anybody has any other goals here. I need a title. I need a title shot. And if you don't have that, then you're just a loser in that place because you have no other thing to do. I have said this about Miami Sweet Heat. They needed to be put into a position where they had something else to do other than try to chase after the titles. It has become their singular defining quality. We needed, we need the title shot so it can be the 5-time. Is the one thing that they have. Even the feuds that they've gotten themselves into, for the last 3 years have largely been built on and around the championship. It's never been a personal issue. But I would think that this would be about as personal as it gets and this is just me. If I were reconstructing that, I was like, this is the time that they needed to lay into, I can't believe Lana Star did this, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case would be, run down some teams. Tell the world why you're the best. Tell everybody, I don't care what happened during this match. It wasn't our fault that we lost. We're better than everybody else there. We've beaten every team that's been put in front of us, and we'll do it again. But it's almost as if WoW doesn't want anybody to have some sort of personal grudge, or WoW doesn't want anybody to be mean or something like that. They like using terms like bullying and this, that, and the other, but you don't even see that. So back to the point. They come out and they just start, even though they don't look at David McClain, they start addressing David McClain. And they basically declare themselves, for all intents and purposes, as the number one contenders. That brings out our babyface counterparts, Princess Aussie and Tormenta. And they come out to say that they deserve a shot at the titles. Now, when this whole thing broke out initially, they were more or less bodies in the match because they didn't really talk about it. They just kind of got inserted in it to make a four-way because they had a few matches against Miami Sweet Heat prior. Wasn't anything beyond that. But this is now the continuation of that, so this leads into match number 3. And they get on the microphone and make the point that, they weren't the ones that got pinned, so we should get the title match. And as expected, McClain gets up from the desk and makes a match on the spot. I don't know why he couldn't do that for Genesis weeks ago when she was begging and pleading for a title match. It took Samantha Smart to come out there and get a match for her. At that point, somehow Dave McClain acted like he was powerless. But here it's like, oh, well, that's a great idea. We'll just have a match and he'll be the number one contender. Again, broken record time. Does not need to be the guy that makes the matches and the commentator. Doesn't. Because you'll get moments like that where he has to either act like I have no ability to do this or do what he did here where I have all the power in the world and I could just make it happen instantaneously. So we've got this coming up. And the only other thing that I would have asked to be changed here is kind of the same thing I said with Aussie and Tormenta when they do their promos to begin with. I like Tormenta cutting the promo. She speaks with a lot of fire. But I do feel like Aussie should be the one to finish it off rather than just stand there and smile and look pretty. She needs to be the one to get the final line in so that we can drive the point home and not the commentators. Even here, the commentator is saying, like, I didn't understand what she said, but it sounded, that. And that was exactly what I said when they did this previously. It was like, what if somebody's not paying attention or they, they put the graphic up, but what if they just walked off and all like they're doing a promo so I can leave and I can go get a drink, but the TV's up and I can hear it. Drive the point home with the talent that's involved rather than the commentators having to do it all the time. It's a simple change, but, it's a change. I ain't saying don't let Tormenta talk. She should be talking. Because, it gives a broader feel to the product. It does It makes it more worldly that she can speak to the Hispanic audience and hopefully be an attraction for more people to tune in. But for the primary audience that's there, let Aussie finish the line. Give her the close. The next segment is a promo for next week's main event, which is also going to be a tag match, as we have a tag match here. Miami Sweet Heat versus Princess Aussie and Tormenta, as they just set up. Those tag titles must easily be the most important thing that WoW has. Well, I guess, the Class Master being their champion just ain't the visual draw that it could be. The next segment, moving into the main event, Big Rigs and Bourbon taking on HollySwag and Penelope Pink, the tag team champions with Lana Star. I didn't mention this earlier, but it has to be said. What is the deal with them using all this old B-roll footage? It's footage clearly from years ago. Why? Is it not anything recent that they have? I mean, you can just look at the gear that they got on. Jessie Jones is in the stuff that she had like 3 years ago, if not longer than that. Big Rig Betty is in her Big Rig Mother Trucker outfit. Yes, it is a small thing. I'm pretty sure, WoW would be like, oh, that's not important. But it is. It's important. It's important to have the people look like what they are doing when they walk through the curtain. They need to be presented as current and as stars. Those things matter. No matter how small you may look at it as, it matters. And I don't think everybody needs to have B-roll playing over their entrance every time they walk out to the ring. Sure, maybe it's somebody here and there, but I do not think that it is just some sort of necessity. Like, all right, it's B-roll time again. Everybody don't need that. And some of which is worse than that. Some of them show different hairstyles, not even the same hair color, outfits being changed. I mean, just if it's not going to be updated material. I mean, that would have been, and again, I know I've used this term before. It doesn't bother me as a wrestling fan. It bothers me as an editor. If you're not going to use the current visuals that the talent has, then don't use the visual. Make them look or present them as current to what they are doing right now. Not just drag up old footage that they had laying around in a file somewhere from when they were on Access TV or beyond that. So anyhow, they start off with Big Rigs and Bourbon coming on out to the ringside and Jessie Jones still carrying her big stick. We get a shot of our paid crowd attendees out there dancing around to the music and whatnot. And then we get the opponents. Penelope Pink, HollySwag, Lana Star. To their credit, the B-roll there, at least the first run of it, was more up to date than anything that their opponents had. HollySwag at least looks like HollySwag. But I guess it would be somewhat silly to have her come out there and have B-roll of her as the mother trucker. This was the match that I enjoyed. I said this is like a one-match show, more or less. And this was it. That was okay with this. Wasn't just okay with it. I was good with this match. Everybody here seemed like they were working hard to try to make this thing fly. Big Rig Betty looked particularly motivated in this match. And, maybe it was me, but, she seemed pretty motivated when she was wrestling here. I don't know if she had something to prove, but, good on her. So this is the rematch. And I think, again, we more or less know where they were going to go with this. But in the case of this, I didn't mind knowing the destination because the journey that they took me on with it was a pretty fun journey. I know you don't really hear me say that about wow matches all that often. But in this case, I will say that. Jones and Big Rig did what you would expect, especially Jessie Jones, to do. She is a babyface somewhat by default. But we can classify her as more or less like the anti-hero. And considering that this is supposed to be not just titles, but is some level of personal issue, the fact that the babyfaces jumped them ahead of time didn't bother me in this instance. Particularly with Big Rig Betty and HollySwag. Because that thing is still going. That might be the closest thing that WoW has to a functioning feud. It still has, its moments, but I'm good with it. So the babyfaces attack. Jones pairs off with Pink. Swag pairs off with her mom, Big Rig. And Big Rig and Swag get taken to the floor. Jones and Pink are on the inside. Not a lot of holes there. I mean, in what Jones is doing, just a shoulder drive into Pink's stomach. Hits it, the shoulder block, and she is pushing with her legs. She's trying to make this thing look like it hurts. That's what I like to see. She is at least trying to take the holes away from the match. And then you get, all four of them back in the ring. HollySwag tries to stop Jessie Jones from beating up on her partner. But Jessie just basically gives an elbow and fires her off. The referee's has lost control. But he's allowing it to go. And Jones and Big Rig are looking good. I've also said a couple of times that, sometimes they'll have matches that get wasted on the WoW audience. This is another one of those moments of like, this match is probably wasted on this audience. They get both of the heels on the outside. Jones is able to get we'll call it a swinging drop kick through the ropes. The other thing that I like is that Jessie Jones pretty much walks over to our idiot referee and just walks him away so that Big Rig can do like a senton off the apron to the floor. Again, she looked like she was feeling particularly motivated there. And I love her for that. Pink and Swag are selling great. And they're looking good in there. This is one of those cases of, I think as a heel team, they really started delivering the goods here. Lana Starr did not have the obvious cheat spot at the beginning, at least. When there's a reversal and Pink sends Jones into the ropes and Lana grabs the leg, puts Jones down. She tries to turn around and grab her, opens her up for Penelope Pink to hit her with the knee, and now we get the heat on Jessie Jones. It was good stuff. This is clearly a more functional tag team match. All due respect to those who existed prior, the Animal Instinct and Charmorro and Kalaki. All due respect to them, but these are girls who have a lot more in-ring experience and can fill in the blanks, so to speak, a little better than what their counterparts are able to do. Even Penelope Pink going over there to harass Big Rig Betty to lure her into the ring to make the referee get her out. She's stomped, they got Jesse Jones. Like I said, they're getting the heat on her. They're stomping in the corner. She walks over to Big Rig, does the little honk thing, and now Rig's trying to get her. And the ref's like, oh, no, you can't do that. So now we go back to the other side, and she's choking her out. Swag is tossing punches in. She even brings Lana Starr in to give some some love taps to Jesse Jones, which even that I didn't mind, because the manager, by and large, are supposed to be ineffective. It's not necessarily going to hurt the person, but it's just humiliating that you get the manager that's attacking this person like that, right? All I wish is that they had a better shot of her doing it. That little segment there, just having Lana Starr be kind of invited in by HollySwag to get a couple of rib shots on Jesse Jones, I enjoyed that just because it helps make her the swarthy manager. It is why Lana Starr, at this point at least, as of recording, is probably the best manager that WoW has. And so they continue. Pink is in control. And, I've gone off and started talking about the whole match. I forgot to bring up the McLean trying to make Big Rig the sympathetic baby face in this equation when he's trying to explain about how they got signed. And he says something to the effect of, basically, she'll do what I tell her to do. Talking about Big Rig when he said, well, I spoke to them when they got signed to WoW, and it was like, shouldn't I talk to the door? It's like, no, she's just to her mama. She'll do what I tell her to do. He doesn't really do a good job of making her sympathetic. And he never has. I don't know why it is so difficult for him to do it, but he has never been able to make Big Rig Betty come off as sympathetic. I mean, in that instance, as he's talking about it, is essentially like, well, she'll just do what she's told. Well, if you're looking at it from that point of view, then she might want to leave and have her own life and, do whatever the case may be. So I don't know if he really got it across that I'm supposed to feel for her, or, oh, how dare her turn on her mom this way. You know what I'm saying? It just did not come across that way as he's trying to explain it. It just never feels like Big Rig, as he explains the situations, because he's tried a number of times. I mean, go back to when he's trying to say, hey, we're going to take you back home and you're going to have the possum soup and this, that. Like, why would she want to do that? It always makes her sound bad. And I didn't want to criticize his commentary, but I every time I hear him now, it just sounds worse. And I'm getting to the point, I was like, he just is not a good commentator. Somebody else should be in that spot. Bring Tiki back, or find another wrestler to put in there to be the heel commentator, but it just gives me another check on why I think he should just migrate himself out of that and let somebody else do it. Zane makes the effort to try to explain some stuff, and I hear him do it more and more often, that he's trying to explain the why and give some kind of reasoning behind some things. And I can at least appreciate that he attempts to do that. But there's only so much that he can do. And I said this about Stephen Dickey probably 2 years ago. The problem with being there with McLean is that eventually they start to adapt his voice. And Zane is on occasion morphed into that. He's been able to come back to being Nigel Zane, I guess, for the lack of a better term. He's been able to get other points across that McClain would not do. But by and large, he, Dicky, and more or less anybody else that sits with McClain begins to adopt his reasoning, his voice as to what's going on in the universe of WoW. And as long as they do that, is just very difficult for any of them to get across as a reasonable commentator. All due respect to David McClain, I don't know if he is helping as much as he believes that he is. But that's just my opinion. So anyhow, and the other thing, I'll get back to the matches because this is the other point that bothered me. McClain is not a trusted voice in the commentating booth. He just isn't. The example that I use for that is him talking about, well, I hope we have enough time to air this match, and if it's too short, we got a standby match. Like, for him, that's just words. When has WoW ever done anything that went beyond time? WoW has existed. Now, granted, it's had its hiatuses, but WoW has existed as a brand since about 2001. They've always had an hour show. They've never gone beyond that. And within those hour shows that they have produced, except for the time when where their shows are going directly to their website, outside of that, it's always been an hour show. At what point have they ever had a match that exceeded the time that they had available to them? At what point have they ever had a match that went underneath where they had to apply some sort of standby match to fill out the time? When have either of those things ever happened? In the 20 years that WoW has existed, the 20 plus, again, hiatus is in there. Like, what was it, a 14-year hiatus? So I can't really say 20 years. We'll just say 7 or so. But when has it ever happened? When? WoW's never gone past this time. WoW has never undercut the time. And if it did, if they undercut it, you wouldn't notice it. They always finish within the hour. They have never had to, well, we should just go to our website. They've never had to do that. At this point, I would have had a match go over just so that I could make that statement and claim. But it's another one of those things that he says because wrestling commentators would do that back in the day all the time. But they did that with matches that could have done it. A lot of that, not WCW Nitro. I mean, they have. Cameras are rolling. We'll be back with your fans. We'll show you next week, that type of thing. WCW Saturday night or the World Championship Wrestling Saturday show when it was the Jim Crockett Promotions. Now, they would do that. But they did that on the basis of having somebody that they knew could potentially have a long match. Flair, Steamboat, the guys like that who were noted for having lengthy at the Midnight Express taking on the Rock and Roll, or and the Horsemen against TA and Dusty and whoever the third guy happened to be that week. Those things, they set you up for it. They gave you the impression or the inclination that this might go longer because you've seen these guys go longer. While we've seen Ric Flair go 60 minutes or do a half hour, easily, standing on his head or whatever the case may be. That has never, ever, ever, ever happened in WoW. So there's no reason to try to portray it like it's going to be some big, long thing. The longest match I think WoW's ever had, bell to bell, might have been 13 minutes. And that includes pay-per-view. That might be the single longest match I've ever seen WoW do anywhere. So it goes back to you should be a trusted voice, not just say stuff just because it sounds good. Because anybody that would have known or seen this for any length of time, now if you're a new viewer, that'll be different. You might believe it. But if you've been watching WoW, and I would venture to say most of the people that are watching WoW now are the people that have already watched WoW, they probably will accept what he says, but they also probably know in the back of their mind that this thing ain't going past no top of the hour. They'll finish it up just in time like they always do. So anyhow, I really broke off and started, with that. But back to the match. So we got a lot of heat on Jesse Jones. And that comes in the form of both Penelope Pink and HollySwag. Even when they're in the corner and they do the double knee lifts to Jesse, and she's kind of like out on her feet and get a snap mirror, and she's just reaching out, just desperate, like, help me, so trying to get to her partner. Swag, who's been doing great, and I don't just mean in WoW, I mean just making the rounds in different wrestling promotions, reality. Somebody talked about that not too long ago. Reality wrestling, OVW, NWA. She's been moving, and she's doing good here. But in this match, getting back to the point, Swag is in control at one point, and then they have a good setup here where Swag tries to go for a suplex again, and then Pink sees that she might be in trouble. She gets in and she makes a distraction. Referee comes in to stop her, and that is the point where Jesse Jones hooks Swag into a small package, and she, the referee's distracted, can't get to her. And then Swag goes up and starts beating on her all over again. It was good stuff here. But let's get to the end of it. We don't need to have the just play-by-play from top to bottom. So Jones again is in the position of trying to fight from underneath him and get out of here. Get to a partner. Try to get to the fresh partner so they can get some sort of win, regain the titles. Swag is trying to go for a hitch and ditch, but Jones is able to fight out it. She turns that into a side Russian leg sweep, and then that's when she's able to crawl over, pulling herself by her hands to make it to Big Rig Betty. Now, I'm not really high on the I tag, you tag spot at the same time, but, we'll go with that. Big Rig gets the tag. Penelope Pink gets the tag. And Big Rig comes in like a locomotive and just steamrolls over Penelope Pink. And then she sets up, does the old backhands and slaps and this, that, and the other. And the super kick. Swag, of course, goes out and she gets her Saga Rocks. Again, the reason why I do not like having the matchmaker / decision maker sitting at ringside when somebody's getting ready to cheat and he's just calling it like it's no big thing. Like, oh, she's got the rocks. So, Lana Star, as Big Rig is torturing Penelope Pink, runs across and pulls Jesse Jones off of the apron. I am willing to accept that because it's the manager. It's the third party. It's not like she sees HollySwag getting down to do it. You can justify that I got to keep my eye on my opponents, but I can't necessarily keep my eye on all three. So when Star runs across that, and I wish it was less of that just across the board so it'd be more impactful when Star does it. So Star runs across, grabs the leg of Jesse Jones, pulls her off the apron while Big Rig Betty has Penelope Pink and Almost like it's not a full-on dragon sleeper, but it's almost like a dragon sleeper. Just positioned differently. And she kind of has it hooked up there because she's putting her own arm behind her back to get extra torque. You can see Pink's face getting a little red there. So again, it's a case of you're taking the holes away from what people would look at and be like, that don't look like it hurt. But Star gets Jones down, pushes her into the post, so Jones is out for the count, unable to help. Swag, in the meantime, while Lana Star is now getting up on the apron to cause a distraction, comes in with The Rock. And this part I liked just because it was some effort. And by effort, I mean is normally when you have somebody do a stupid move in the match or the babyface dodges something, it's almost like they're stunned, like, what do I do? In other normal circumstances, Swag could have hit Penelope Pink by accident and then she would have just stood like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm sorry, that. But here, it was played a little different. She gets into the ring. She takes the sock. I wish they had another name for it. She takes a sock with rocks in it and tries to hit Big Rig Betty. Big Rig Betty sees it. And as much as I talk about bad camera shots, this was a good one because you could see her face. And you can see that she's looking up and she sees her daughter coming to attack her. So she's able to get out of the way. She lets go and rolls back. Good timing, too. So she rolls out of the way, and then Penelope Pink gets walloped in the head. She goes down. Big Rig Betty gets up to her feet. Swag is standing there. She does have a moment where she's somewhat dumbfounded. And Big Rig at least made the effort to try and stop her. She tried. She rolls through, gets up on the feet, tries to charge her, but Swag's reflex is just too fast, and then bam, nails her in the head. So, I mean, it was a quick succession. It showed that Swag wasn't just going to get lost in her mistake, nor was Big Rig Betty going to get lost in the idea that, oh my gosh, she just tried to hit me. They both tried. One tried and failed. I mean, but you give the effort to Big Rig that she made the attempt to cut down her heel daughter while she had the opportunity to do it. HollySwag was just a little bit too fast. So she nails Big Rig. She goes down like a tree. Swag drags Pink on top of Big Rig Betty. And then there we go. The match is won because the ref turns around and sees Penelope Pink on top of Big Rig with an arm draped across her body, and they get the pin. Now, Swag is dragging the limp noodle body of Penelope Pink out of the ring, lifted her arm up for her because she can't do it. And if this does nothing else, I'm not a big fan of the sock full of rocks, but I have to admit, at least they keep that thing basically protected. When somebody gets hit with it, they're pretty much unconscious. Now, again, I do not necessarily care for it because it's allegedly a rock that's being swung at high velocity towards somebody's skull. So, not my favorite weapon in the world. I mean, some of these people should be having like blunt force trauma or fractured skulls or something by now. As many times they get clobbered with that thing. But there we go. That was it. It was the match of the show. It did deserve the main event. It had a lot less holes in it than what you would sometimes expect out of a wild match, or at least sometimes what I expect out of a wild match. And it really shows me the difference. And I don't mean this as an insult to the other people that are on that show, but it shows me the difference with people who have been doing this, trained in this, and do it for a while opposed to people who are put on there ahead of when they need to be. It is not that Animal Instinct cannot get to that point at some time in their career if they chose to do it, which I doubt that they're going to continue this. But it's not that they can't do that. It's just that they've been put in a position where they have to be better than what they actually are. And WoW can try to cover it. They can try to protect them. They can, give them short matches. They can put them in the ring with people that are better than them to try to, make them look good or at least give them some rush job experience. They can do all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's still national television, and they are still supposed to be top level talent. And talented as they may be, they aren't top level talent yet. That's all I mean when I say that they're not ready to be where they're at. They're going to keep pushing. I'm sure they are. They're going to keep putting them in the position that they're in. They're going to keep pushing them as a top act and a top team. It would not surprise me at some point they do win the tag team titles. That won't shock me at all. Because as I said before, somebody there clearly is enamored with the act of Animal Instinct and want them to succeed or at very least entertained by them. So I expect them to, unless one of them quits, I expect them to be there for a lengthy period of time, and I expect them to get more high-profile matches in the future. But that was this episode of WoW. And, of course, we've got another one, as we always do, upcoming, and that would be Sweet Heat's Revenge. Now, by the time you listen to this, you would have seen that. But just for my sake, I'm going to read what this upcoming match for me happens to be. So bear with me. Sweet Heat's Revenge. Miami Sweet Heat, Lovely Laurie and luscious Lindsay Carlson set out to prove that they can achieve Wild Tag Team Champion status without Lana Star. But first, they must score a victory over Tormenta and Princess Aussie, who will dominate in the main event to rise to Wild World Tag Team #1 contender status. IQ Superior Samantha Smart proposes a 3-on-1 non-title match between the class matches. Oh, God. Spring Break 24/7. Brittany Bay, Crystal Waters, and Sandy Shore in an attempt to prove the class matches can wipe out any competition that comes at her. Adriana Gambino leads the Alliance. BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni, and Reina Del Rey to assert their dominance in the ring against the energetic Keita Rush and one half of the Mighty Might Sugar. While Tara Strike continues to recover from her brutal beatdown inflicted by the top-tier gang, Kalaki takes on veteran ring warrior Sylvia Sanchez. Well, I am going to assume that we're going to get a babyface win in the title in the No More Contenders match. It's not going to shock me. Classmaster will beat 24/7. I mean, why wouldn't you? I don't know why all three would be listed. Again, it was a 3-on-2 match. And why do they even bring up the beat down by top tier? That doesn't even seem important to this particular match. Kalaki taking on Sylvia Sanchez. Who cares that Tara Strike got beaten up by top tier? They had their chance to get revenge, and then that revenge was taken away from them 2 weeks later. So there we have it. Anyhow, so that's it, folks. That is the review, and I am sure that I'm putting air quotes around enjoy this next episode of Sweet Heat's Revenge. I look forward to it. There might be a little bit of sarcasm there. Maybe. So, let's do the normal things. If you're watching this on YouTube, do the YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe. Comments are always welcome. Thank you for those of you that have left comments at the other things, or messaged me, or sent emails. I enjoy reading them, and I enjoy reading the reviews that have been put down there, and the statements that's been put underneath some of these videos. And by Captain Commentator, what did he say? That at least WoW doesn't overwhelm you with a bunch of videos or wrestling shows. Yeah, you're right. WrestleMania weekend is a long, rough weekend, but they can overwhelm you with all the stuff that did Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Stand and Deliver, WrestleMania 2 different nights, then Raw again. So yeah, it's a lot. I agree. But getting back to the point, like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much for that. You can subscribe to the audio version of this on greater podcast platforms everywhere. If you are unable or don't know where, or don't know how to find any of these things, well, just go on WPNWrestling.com. It is everything, all the stuff. I was about to get the title of the movie, Everything Everywhere at Once. But no, it's not that, but it's everything that I got going there so that you can find it very easily. All podcasts and videos that run 24/7 dating back to 2013, featuring a lot of faces that you might know from in a lot of different locations. And on that note, as I prepare to sit down and watch the next one that's sitting up on my Tableau, which is a nice little DVR for over-the-air broadcast, by the way. I don't get paid to say that, but I just felt like sharing that. This is how I get to make sure I stay up to speed on what the episodes are. I'm about to sit down and look at that now, and then when I get done, I'll come right back to the computer, and I'm going to come right back into doing another review. So on that note, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.